Alright, so this is going to be kind of a real quick walk around of what I've done so far. I didn't really want to film just the disassembly of it because most of it's pretty simple. Took the fenders off. They're back there. I don't know if you can see it. They're going to get replaced. I'm basically doing a complete overhaul on the entire vehicle. I'm going to strip it down to the frame, get rid of the old suspension, which as you can see is pretty much shot. Rebuild it all the way, kind of a labor of love kind of deal. It's in pretty solid shape, honestly. Only a few spots is the body really rusty. The rest of it is in pretty decent shape. I mean, the frame's got hardly any rust on it. My grandfather bought it back in '87, brand new. It's seen quite a bit of action. It looks pretty terrible in here, but a lot of that's just dirt from up there falling down. I need a better place to work on it, but this is the only place I could get it for right now. Dirty as can be, but completely stock and not tampered with at all. The way it rolled off the factory floor is the way it is right now. Came with air conditioning system and everything. Again, excuse the mess. It's pretty gnarly in here right now. But everything, including any holes, some new ones starting to develop or think about developing. Whatever's along the side there is going to get cut out. New body panel pieces will be welded in. I think I'm going to leave the transmission the way it is. I'm not going to modify it. Not going to modify basically anything. I'm going to try and leave it as stock as possible, with the exception of the engine. I'm going to try and, if I can get it 10 more horsepower and get it up to 70 horsepower instead of 60, that would be nice. But everything's off. Manifolds, intakes, all off. All I gotta do now is unbolt it from the transmission and take off the mounts and hang it up. And it's probably gonna sit there for at least a couple months before I even start rebuilding that, because I'm gonna put my effort into getting the body redone, getting all new bolts, getting rid of all these stinking Phillips, which are just a terrible idea because I've barely gotten half of them out. So it's been sitting in a garage since 2005. So more than ready to see the road again. But this is just kind of see where we go from here. So I don't have any footage of us taking the engine out because it ended up actually being a real mess, and it was just an ugly scenario that we put ourselves through. So you'll have to forgive me on that. You'll get video of it going back in. But here I'm just taking stuff off the body, trying to make it as light as possible, so when we pick it up off the frame, it's gonna just be a little easier. Please ignore my boxers hanging out. I didn't have a belt. Jared and I are just trying to get the wiring harness all sorted out and labeled so that we can just disconnect as much as we can from the body. In a minute here you'll see him under the car. We noticed that one set of wires went underneath the car with no disconnect and went all the way back to the brake lights, so we were trying to figure that out. Now here was the worst part of it for me. I was trying to figure out this whole dashboard assembly. It took me forever to figure out how to even get it to come off, and there's so many lines and wires that were holding it in place and clipped behind there that it took me a couple days. So, but once I figured out, most of the AC system was what was holding it in, it came out pretty easy. Thank goodness, though. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to do for today. It's actually been a few days, but this is probably going to be where I end, my second or first video. Sorry I didn't have a ton of footage. It's kind of hard to get camera in here with all this junk. I need to clear all this out and make my life a heck of a lot easier. But I got the dash off, which took forever, and I'm sure people were screaming at their monitors, phones, whatever, because they knew how to get it off. Apparently, the only thing I was missing was this bolt right here, and then as soon as I undid that, it all came off. It felt like it was being held here, but I just did not see that at all. So as soon as I got that, it all came pretty quick. I had to take all the ductwork out before I could fish out the harness here, though. Just bad luck. I think next thing to do is for me to deal with the engine that's kind of been hanging there for about a week now. Not so much, start rebuilding, but get all my parts figured out, taken care of, put in bins. Because the engine is actually going to be the last thing I touch, because I want to put my money directly into the frame and body first. So I think I'm just going to get that all dealt with, taken apart. And then after that, I'm going to start coming in here and start dealing with this wiring. I was putting tape on just about everything, but I was getting a little frantic and really wanting to get that off because everything was just dangling. And I think I'm going to see if I can buy those little white tags that I don't know, you see on like yard sales, and see if I can find like a bulk set of that at like the dollar store, so I can just loop it around, and that way I can write on the table versus me trying to fish around in there and get tape in there, and that'll make it all cleaner. And when I get this off, I'll just hang it somewhere useful. Beyond that, I think that's it for today. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them, or if you have any tips for putting it back together, definitely don't be scared to tell me. Alright, later guys.